Today we are going to be speaking with the dynamic Reverend Dr. John L. Payne. He's going to shed some light for us on spirituality and religion. Welcome to the show, Reverend. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And once again, thank you for the invitation as we continue this series, which I think is a very good discussion that we need to have. So I'm glad to participate.
Very good. Reverend, tell me, what's the difference between spirituality and religion?
I have a saying, and this is just my personal saying. Religion and spirituality or faith cannot coexist. Because religion will have you ignoring the science and doing something that does not make sense. Spirituality and faith and religion can coexist because spirituality will say, I've been diagnosed with a condition. Now I'm going to pray to God. But in the meantime, I'm going to get the best medical help I can get. Because we got these expressions in the church that we use so often, you know, I've been diagnosed with this and the doctors tell me I have this or I have that. I'm not claiming it.
Yeah.
And my reply is, you don't have to claim it. It has already claimed you. So religion, spirituality, faith, and religion can't coexist.
Okay.
Because they'll have you doing something that don't make sense.
Right. Now, with being religious and spiritual, can one be angry? I don't know if you've noticed, it just seems like people are just angry today. It seems like it hurts people to smile. How can one be angry and then say, I'm a Christian or I'm of the Muslim faith, but you're angry all the time?
Basically, people have put too much attention on religion. And if you would go back and study the different religions, you will find that through the activities of mankind, religion has been one of our great problems. But people who were spiritual were willing to give up their life for mankind. And that's the difference. If you look at Jesus's ministry and his life, he says, I come to serve, not to be served. And he says, I come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. Unfortunately, we have people who are in the ministry now who want to be served. They don't want to do the serving. They want to be served. One of the greatest examples that Jesus ever gave to us when he was about to be crucified and to ascend into heaven, he set his disciples down and he washed their feet. And they asked, Lord, what are you doing? He says, if I'm your Lord, can humble myself and wash your feet, you ought to also wash the feet of one another. So once we keep that concept of what we've been called to, then we can be more compassionate to one another and do the Lord's work.
would you say that someone has to teach religion while spirituality is within yourself?
Yes, for the simple fact that if you go back to the basics, where God is a spirit and we must worship him in spirit and in truth. And God said, let us make man in our own image. So yes, we have to be taught spirituality, but we are spiritual beings.
Mm.
Religion is something that's taught with a slant towards that group or that individual who has an ulterior motive and have gotten out of the teachings of the Lord. There's a funny thing. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all have a basic teachings or basic tenets. And if you would look at it, we are so close to one another, but what separates us is religion.
Okay. So do you believe that religion is fixed while spirituality embraces different perspectives?
Yes, I can find common ground with an Orthodox Jew. I can find common ground with an Orthodox Christian. I can find common ground with an Orthodox Muslim. Because if they're following the teachings of their holy books, then even though we may differ religiously, we have common ground that we can stand on spiritually, because the goal is to make the world a better place than when we came here. What would the world be like when we leave? Will it be the same when we leave, or will it be different? So that's our goal. I'm not so concerned about your religious practices, because that's basically what it is. Your religious practices. I'm more concerned about your spiritual growth. Now, we may have some differences, yes, but if we're still being true to our holy books, we can come and sit down at the table of brotherhood and find a solution by compromising to the problem of manhood.
Would you say that you've seen a decrease in church attendance? I'm sure that you are friends with many pastors, bishops throughout the city of Philadelphia. Have you found that many people are not attending church or other religious institutions as much as they did years ago?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt, church attendance is down tremendously because we're dealing with a whole different generation who do not feel the need to attend church, to have that connection with God and to be more spiritual with God. I believe in God. I just don't believe in this church stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we cannot point our fingers at those who no longer attend church, even though they grew up in a household where they went to church on a consistent basis. Things have changed. We can still have that connection with God, but the attendance is, people are finding out that with all the issues that we're dealing with, the traditional church does not want to deal with the issues that are arising now. I'm not going to get into all these other issues like abortion or different lifestyles, because there are people who are asking themselves questions. Where do I fit in? I believe in God. I believe in God, but because I'm different from the traditional churchgoer, how do I find out where God will accept me? Because we say God is love.
Right.
So if God is love, that means God loves me regardless of what you think of me. Because my lifestyle may be different from your lifestyle.
Right. And you saying God is love, and I'm thinking about all of the homicides that are occurring in the city of Philadelphia. And I know somewhere down the line, whoever has done the shooting, who is doing the shooting, I know they had a praying grandmother. And I know they took them to church one day or two. Where is their fear? And fear is not always a bad thing, because I fear what may happen to me if I do something that I know I'm not supposed to do. So speaking about my higher being, I fear going to jail because I don't want to go there either. Is it that these people, we don't know, we're just speculating, that they don't have fear or they don't have a higher being? But I can't imagine that all of these people do not have some type of religion. How do you say you belong to some religious institution and you hurt other people, or you even kill other people? How can one justify that?
You can't. You can't. It's a situation where people are looking for something, and then you have to remember we're dealing with over an abundance of mental illness. I'm not blaming everything on mental illness, but we have an exceptional amount of mental illness. When people just go around shooting other people at random for no reason at all, what is the explanation for that? So I'm looking at it in a sense, and I don't want to get in an argument with people of with the guns and all this, but when you just pick up a gun and you decide you're going to go kill some people, there's got to be something mental about that. The other point is when a young man or a young woman sees someone standing on the corner and just walk up to them and take their life for no reason at all. What is your explanation for that? Did you give any thought to this? Did you not realize that you are taking someone else's life and you're disrupting that whole family's life? So we have many issues that we need to deal with as a society. And just let me say this. We cannot depend upon our politicians to solve our problem. Just like you said, I know a lot of these young men and young women who've grown up in Christian households or Muslim households or Jewish households who are committing these crimes without any thought. So how do we resolve that? There is no one answer.
How or what would you suggest for that pastor, bishop, who has people within the congregation that are dealing with domestic violence. A lot of times that's swept under the rug in churches because the pastors don't want to deal with that issue. How would you deal with that issue if you knew that was going on within your church? And what would you say to those other pastors to make sure they're not sweeping that under the rug?
Well, once again, you hit home with me. I had a very abusive father. And growing up in that environment, I could have went one way, but I decided to go a different way. And witnessing this abuse with my father and my mother, I made God a promise. Lord, don't let me end up like this. Because it became such prevalent and it was hard to understand why my father would take it out, his frustrations on my mother, knowing that my mother is home raising 3 young men. Where would she find the time to do what he was accusing her of doing? So that issue hit home with me, and I realized that he had a problem. Don't let his problem become my problem.
Now, did you ever experience that with anyone in your congregation? Of course, not revealing anything. And then how do you handle that situation as a pastor?
I have experienced it as a pastor where a couple was being abused. And I tried to give some counseling to it was mainly the young lady who was being abused by the young man. But she kept having babies by this young man because he saw it as a way of control. But he would always explain to her when he abused her, he didn't mean to do it. Or it was her fault. And I would share with her, I got to the point where I would say, I can no longer help you, but I can get you some help. But she never accepted the help.
Yeah, and no judgment, because we don't know why some people stay in certain relationships when they're in a domestic violence relationship. So hopefully she received some help from somewhere.
Yes, that was my prayer.
I want to thank you so much for joining me today and breaking everything down so our viewers could understand. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. Today, Reverend Dr. John L. Payne broke down spirituality and he broke down religion. Both are important in your life. You need them to make it through each day. Peace and love.